The following program is rated GE. It is suitable for general family viewing.
But I want us to come to, at some point, I want us to discuss Gen Zs, that whole workforce. I really want to discuss that. But there's something that as we all continue talking, Catherine talked about talking to a founder and trying to understand this founder and their mindset. And Manish talked about what he's trying to do as a business, and he also talked about his founders, because he's created mini founders or co-founders with him. And at Founders Battlefield, what we've been looking at is trying to connect the dots in terms of what makes an African founder operating system. You know, maybe use a Mac, maybe use a Windows. What is that thing that makes a Mac work? It's an OS, correct?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if in America, the Mac will work, right? But I could take you, Manish is an example. He's come from India. He came and worked for a Kenyan company or a global international Kenyan company, Africa company. Then now he set up an African business. So what was in his DNA? What was him? What was that Africa operating system that he's learned, okay, that is going to make him successful moving forward, right? And you had to bring a guy from, as you mentioned, I've got a Canadian, I've got this guy and this guy. What is that thing you're trying to put together called an Africa operating system? Because that is the operating system, I think, that is going to differentiate countries, even countries that make it with leadership and those that don't make it. Because it starts with that operating system. So what is that operating system as founders that we must start identifying? So at Founders Battlefield, one of the things we're trying to do is ascertain what is an Africa Founders Operating System. So by talking to you guys, it's going to be 40 episodes. Our hope is that by the time we are done, we'll have figured out what is an Africa Founders Operating System. Because listening to you, it's about understanding. And we sort of began breaking it down, and we looked at it. The first thing is mindset. It's your mindset. So even if you go and coach me, or even if you come to my business to do consulting, the first thing you have to figure out, this founder, what is the mindset? Scarcity versus abundance.
Abundance.
Yes.
Those two conversations with a founder makes a very big difference.
Yeah.
How he looks at the whole situation from a mindset point of view. The next thing is the emotional state. Okay? So their founders, their self-worth. Are they in this business? This business give them validation. Okay? Or are they in this business because it's a purpose, it's a contribution, it's a bigger ideation to it. So if you challenge the emotional state, which is their identity, they're going to fight you back, 100%. Okay? So the next thing we look at is strategic. How do they think about what they're doing? This is what we call our founders operating system looking. Strategic could mean, how do they look at delegation? How do they look at risk, right? How do they look at timing? How do they look at those kind of things? So if you also need to understand as founder, how strategic are they? Because as you said, did you start this business out of necessity? Or did you start this business because you strategically figured it out and knew where my opportunity was from an innovation point of view or from even a competitive advantage? The next thing you're also looking at is social. You can go to an entrepreneur and find a founder and find socially he's amazing. That's how he's able to build his business. But another entrepreneur socially is poor, right? And social could also mean trust, team dynamics, understanding even how to deal with partners. Some of the stuff you're saying is really social. Knowing you can bury conversations socially, they'll still come up. You know, you can say, okay, today I've won. Tomorrow I'll come back with this conversation and deal with you. So even socially, when people go out for a drink and you fight, you find eventually the guy who loses will still come back to the table and say, hey, I have to win. You see, that's a social conversation. And lastly, spiritual. Okay? You know, spiritual is about purpose, it's about legacy, it's about contribution. Because also, you have to understand, this founder you're dealing with, how does he look at the bigger part of life? How does he look at it? If I'm a billionaire here, or a millionaire here, I don't care about everything else. So I'm going to get the best from everybody, not the best. I'm going to squeeze everything from everybody to maximize my returns. So what we are finding is that having what we call this Africa Founders Operating System around those 5 elements, even if I look at them from a talent point of view, you can see how it starts becoming together. So if you start analyzing a founder around what we call our AFOS ecosystem, you'll start now determining what's my matrix for Manish. So everything you've said, I've been trying to evaluate your spiritual, okay, your emotional, how strategic you're thinking, your social, and also your mindset. So I think in summary, I can say I can almost know where you are in that radar, right? So even a decision to come and work with you, not even as a coach or even as a board member or advisory board member, will be informed by your level of maturity in that segment. Is that correct? Now, let's shift the conversation into something very interesting, which is competence versus attitude. Okay? And I want to throw this question to Farah in a very, very interesting way.
Okay.
You know, you've got competence on one side of the graph, and you've got attitude. So if somebody is highly competent and they have poor attitude, they are mercenary.
Yeah.
They're mercenary, and it's okay. Then if somebody has both, high competence, high attitude, they are your gold star, correct? Mm-hmm. And then you have down here where you have got high attitude, high great attitude, and then low, mid-level competence. There are people you can nurture to bring to a certain point, right? Then you have a guy with low competence and attitude. That one you just throw outside. But unfortunately, maybe they are relative or they're committed to you by the person who gives you the biggest paycheck, okay, which is your customer, unfortunately. So how do you still? So my question to you is, in today's day and age, I could be the mercenary. Sawa. And Manisha said, okay, that we hire for competency, okay, and we pay if somebody delivers. So if I'm a mercenary, if you're trying to recruit for me,
yeah,
and you realize that the person you're about to give me is a mercenary, okay, vis-a-vis somebody who is on this graph, great attitude but doesn't have a competency, who do you recommend for me?
So, again, it also depends on the culture of where they're coming. Sometimes the culture is mercenary. And if you bring someone who's too nice, great attitude, they're not going to, and we've seen that. So first you got to look at where you're bringing them. And also there's ways, and we've spoken about it, there is some testing we can do to see how they fit. Where are they on this competence attitude? That's where performance testing comes in, and we run tests on our candidates. And I've run tests on myself, so it's not something, what I like to do on myself, I like to do for others. So I run a lot, I really believe in testing and different tests. So now with this whole thing, if you're gonna bring in a mercenary, in the end, even if they're your best star performer, from a competence, if they have a bad attitude, they're going to bring everyone down. In the end, it's going to corrode your culture. You're not going to be able to deal with them. And I think a lot of people face that issue, and they're going to bring toxicity around them. So if I was to advise between both, I think you can teach someone. You saw that. You train them. You bring someone on. Especially with startups, I think the attitude is what's important, because you want someone roll up their sleeves, do what you need, redesign, change things. And that competence could change. So it depends on competence for what. You're hiring competence to redesign. That's the competence you want, not competence in one area. And we already learned from the world of AI, competence is shifting. You need somebody who can change mindset, adapt, do those things. So that's what you're hiring for. Because the competence, as we talked earlier when I stated, You can go to school and be competent and finish things. That's what your degree will tell you. But in today's world, I shifted also my competencies to another area. So it's the ability to shift, redesign, re-innovate, and move with the needs of the organization. In a startup, it's very fast moving. It's changing constantly because there's always, and for the Africa landscape, you know, when you do the Porter's 5 Forces in MBA school, government regulations is one of them. That's super here. Like things can change tomorrow, right? And I found that working at Bridge International in the startup, you know, the Constitution came in, it completely transformed the education landscape for the startup and what they were doing and their pricing and how they go to market. So yeah, I think to me, if I had to pick between the two, it's actually the person, and that's why I bring out of kind of the typical candidates, which is thinking through of what other person would work well for this organization, not this typical person. And thinking through those alternatives is really important. Even for the founder to sit there and go, okay, I know I want this person, but is there, in my kind of organization, a different person who would be a better fit? And then as an organization grows, maybe there's more specialization. But realistically, when you're a fast-moving startup, you need someone who's adaptable, changing, moving fast, growing fast, and can do anything and will do anything and is willing to learn. We live in a world now where I think we're moving away from specializations to more generalizations to be able to do more different things and and so I think that person with that mindset, and if they're too structured, they're not going to adapt well.
I think you've just, I'm going to give you a story, and I want to come to Catherine from a Gen Z point of view. And that whole issue about competency and mercenary and all that kind of stuff. I'll give you a small story. Last week, 2 weeks ago, my other current business, which is Ponea, we made a decision last 1.5 years to go into a B2B space, okay? So and we tested the model. So we started now acquiring customers to take our platform as a SaaS platform because we'd invested so much money building the platforms. So you know what happens eventually before you change your business model, or you first do presentations and you see if it can be consumed. The content can be consumed by customers. So we saw customers are consuming. But the challenge then was we need to change our market-facing content platform, which is your website and all kind of stuff. And then the question was, it took me a long time to think, how do I get the complexity of what we do as Ponea? Because we build it as a B2B2C platform. Now we're trying to build it as a B2B. How do I tell somebody now, listen to me, you can still run this hotel? I had a vision of how the hotel should be, but I don't run the hotel. I want to tell you, I want to give you my hotel to run, and I give you software to run it. So, okay, so we are together so far. So I realized I had all the content, had everything, I had all the information. So I decided, okay, I need somebody to come and build this content. I know it's simple. In my mind, I'm very clear. I have all the content. It's industry specific by industry, whether it is insurance, it is healthcare, hospitals, it is TPAs, third-party transaction administrators for healthcare, even corporates who want healthcare. That is, to me, those are my industries. Technology-wise, we offer technology platforms for patients. So a patient can be a corporate patient, it can be a hospital patient, it can be an insurance patient. So I said I have the material, both vertical and horizontal. So information is there. Then on this side, there's AI, correct? Yeah. That can consume all the content that I have. So I call these guys. I tell them, listen, guys, I want you guys, since you've helped me build this tech part, can you come, we spend 4 days, 5 days, 1 month, building what we call a front-facing platform. So, and I like what you talked about, attitude and competency. So I went to the competent guys. Okay, I told them, guys, come, let's do this. So they told me, you know, Mike, you know, boss, you know, now me, I treat them as arm's length because they're contractors. So they're mercenary. In one way, they can also be mercenary, okay? Mercenary contractors who come and do, not do, depending on how they feel. So we exchange. I told them I need a solution, a decision on how you want to proceed with this in 24 hours, right? So we spent. Then 2 days ago, I woke up, I couldn't sleep at around 4 o'clock. So I got up in the morning. I thought to myself, okay, I need to solve this problem. Okay, these guys are taking me around in circles. Is that correct? taking me out in circles. I said, okay, we're going to deal with it. Manish, from a technology point of view, what you used to do for me 4 years ago, I went online. I said, can you give me a software development tool to build a knowledge-based content platform? I saw it. It gave me. Got my credit card, paid $50. Okay. I said, now listen, that's done. I looked at that, I said, this is all my content. Can you aggregate all my content such that vertically and horizontally, the content integrates in a way that you coming from healthcare can understand what I'm trying to offer you from a technology point of view. And if you come from a technology point of view, you can understand what I'm trying to offer you from a healthcare point of view. So far, we are together. Perfect. 100-page document summarized into 20 pages. Something called a product delivery, roadmap, product, PRD is called product development document, whatever it is, what they give software developers to develop software, correct? I told it, give me step-by-step model of how to build this. This is 4 o'clock in the morning, okay? This is 4 o'clock. These guys have been battling with these guys for the last 2 days. Give me. But they've been taking me this mercenary business. I said, okay, let's deal with this. So $50, $20, $40 into paid AI platform for content management. Now let me show you how to start building. I went paid subscription. I said, step by step, let's start building. Load. I think for it, he tells me, yeah, I can see. Because now this guy, the competency guy, has become a machine. Yeah. So he's behaving exactly how my mercenary guy would have behaved. I ask the question, it gives me an answer, but now this guy doesn't have attitude or he's doing what he has to do, believe it or not. I began building this at 4 a.m., okay? 8 o'clock, I had to do other things, so I left my house. So I got the software tool. I downloaded the app on the mobile. So I'm doing in traffic. My driver is there. I'm just changing. It's asking me questions. I'm saying, chukua here, deal with this. I ask this other system, do it. Let me tell you. I started at 4 a.m. Traffic, rain. You know how you're sitting in traffic for 2 hours. I finally launched the platform. If you look at it, it could have been developed anywhere in the world. With anybody, it has every information that I need is on that platform. At how much? $50, which was my subscription. $50 on this other side, and my commitment, my personal attitude to say, I'm going to do this. Is that correct? So now, what has happened to me overnight? I've totally changed my view on how software can be built. And I believe there's so much we can do now that I've figured out it's doable. So all your crazy thoughts that you ever used to think I have to give another guy to think for me, I'm not doing that anymore. I know it can be done. So long as AI tells me this is possible, I will do it. Now, what has happened, and I really like your answer, what you said that you will always have for attitude more than competence. Because AI all of a sudden has made competent guys no longer bankable. You don't have to be competent. What is this you're telling me? What I need is attitude. Be able to wake up in the morning at 4 o'clock and say, I will try. Is that correct? Yes. So that was a very interesting, I want to give you that story. It just happened. And Manish, when you guys have time, you can go to ponea.tech. Ponea.tech. That whole platform, everything you see, everything has been built by me and some 2 developers, and my decision to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning, which I would have still been waking up anyway, or not decided to wake up between 4 and 6 o'clock. So, and that interesting then brings me to Catherine, and that I think answers the question on competence. I hope guys can understand, and I hope this becomes an aha moment for many guys who, or even Gen Zs, or even millennials who sometimes think that their competency is currency for you to hold people ransom, even entrepreneurs ransom.
Well, on that though, as an example, in the legal field, right? So we operate by templates, right? I used to have a template for a demand letter, and then I would edit it. Now you go to AI, and so our lawyer is going to be not needed other than the strategy of the law, right? So again, I can now go to AI, or you can go do your demand letter. You don't have to come to me to do an easy demand letter. So competencies that were traditional competencies are now in question. And that's why being a generalist and be able to now work with AI, work with the changing environment of intelligence, right? With artificial and current intelligence is what's key for all organizations of all size.
You know what you've said, and as we go to Catherine, then we start looking at our key takeaways. You know, I had a lawyer who did some work for me, and I told her, recently, I told her, first she was pissed off because I told her about AI. She's pissed off. So I decided, okay, fine, it's okay. She told me, you can go use AI, Mike. I said, no problem, no issues. So now what I do, when I give an AI a legal brief, okay, which is simple there, not very complex brief. If it's rental agreement or leasing agreement, you know what I do? I go tell it, here's a sample legal agreement. It's another sample agreement. It's another sample legal agreement. Do for me a template. Mm-hmm. These are my thoughts. Use the Kenyan law. Tell me what are the possible risks. Address the risks in this document, blah, 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 blah. I take the document, I send it to a lawyer and say, do your final chart check. Yes. And send for signature.
Yes. Look at how much you saved.
Yeah. I said, by the way, listen, if they tell me the fee is this, I just said, bring it back, okay? Just do power. Just sign there as whatever you need to sign off. I'll pay you for that. Mm-hmm. So you see, now what we need is a lawyer who can immerse themselves in my business, not just become a lawyer. Is that correct?
Exactly.
So that has changed the job profile. And then now coming back to Gen Zs. Now, let's look at from a Gen Z point of view. I think it's a very important conversation we need to have. They have the tools. They don't have that, let me walk through your door kind of conversation anymore. Mm-hmm. They have also realized they've got a voice, but they need to speak as a communal voice. They don't necessarily come individually, they come together. So it means if you have got 20, 50 Gen Zs or 100 Gen Zs like Manish, if he's not careful, they can make up an all walk out of his office one day. Is that correct? How do you manage? What do you advise? How do you manage? No, I don't have any. I don't not even think the question is manage. Yeah. I want to say, throw it out there. Gen Z equals talent, equals competence, equals culture, whatever. What about that?
My feeling is, I sometimes feel Gen Zs are a bit misunderstood because for most people, they are way ahead of their time and they're very loyal to each other. And when they know, they know. But they don't like being mishandled. I feel they're a bit delicate. So you have to learn how, in my opinion, how to handle these delicate people. But they also, I feel now they should shift. It's their time to shift. Because like you said, AI will come in. What you have to quietly handle a Gen Z to do, wait on him to decide my mental health. You know, they're big on mental health. My mental health, this is not the time to do this, will be taken over. So I think Gen Zs just, they need to change. They themselves, their culture needs to a bit now change because the world is changing. They're very competent with using the AI tools, but their, how do we call it? Their personalities, their entitlement is a bit much. They need to change that. But also, we need to change to be able to tell them, okay, you can take your health day, but deliver. Like he says, if you come 6 to 1, you finish your work and you can go and do whatever else you want. So I feel Gen Zs, we have to mollycoddle them a bit. We sometimes don't have time for that, and they might miss out a lot because of their attitude. So like I keep going back, it is culture change, it is coaching, it is mentoring, it is the ability, the personality themselves to tell themselves, we need to change. I have Gen Zs in my house, and I feel they're a bit different because of the culture in the house. You have to work, there's no excuse. But a lot of them are, even in school, you can cheat on your paper. You can get away with a lot of stuff. So that competency, but let's say the attitude, I think, is what Gen Zs need to change. I'm not battering them, but Their attitude is needs a bit working on. And they don't know better until we show them.
But if they wake up, if a Gen Z's, their life is to wake up and find politicians insulting each other, online people insulting each other, get rich schemes, quick, let's go. How do we expect these Gen Zs? Who are their role models? If around us, everything we see, there's so much chaos, okay? We almost have lost our identity. Is that correct?
I agree with you.
The other day, I was talking to some Gen Zs. I asked them, what do you guys want to be? They told me they want to do politicians. I said, hey, stop jokes. The guy says, I want to do politicians. I said, why? But it's only path that I see I can make money. I said, okay, interesting. That's what they see, correct? That's what they affiliate with. So how and maybe it's to Manish and Farah, you guys deal with Gen Zs, or you're even trying to hire a Gen Z manager. You're trying to hire a manager in a company where you're going to have a lot of Gen Zs. Okay.
Yeah.
How do you manage that? How is the job brief? How you manage it? Because I would imagine your business, you have a lot of Gen Zs. How are you managing that? Okay, because at the end of the day, I say if you go to the ocean with a boat with a sail, okay, you will go towards the wind. Is that correct? Yes. Where the wind blows. Mm-hmm. So whether you like it or not, whether you like the Gen Zs, whether they have attitude or not, there's an attitude. There's a wind. There's the way the wind is blowing. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So you have to choose what your steering capacity is.
Can I just say something?
Sure.
You asked one question, who are the role models? Uh-huh. And like the way we have sat here, they can see, apart from politicians, there's Mr. Manish. He has managed to do this.
But this is the first time he's coming.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So my point here is we need the role models to come out a bit more. You know, the politicians are there out and loud. But like we go to a lot of TVETs, we go to schools, and just quietly try and change that attitude. Who are your role models? We also try and put people coming directly from schools. And I started with my own children. Before you go into university, you go and do work somewhere. We want to be we say in a bank. I talk to a banker friend. Let these people, don't pay them, maybe feed them lunch, but let them come, work, no, can we fit into this culture? It's a slow thing, but I think it would be good if every Kenyan, every organization said, I would like 5-6 people I can mentor, and they get into that culture of working well, but because they have actually no role models that we can think of and sing about. There are very few. But if the founders, if the corporates came out and said, this is our culture. We would like our next generation, instead of hiring from a culture that is so free-falling, you say, when you come from school, our interns, before they go to university, we would like 2-3 people to just come. And I've seen that work very well with the people I've taken and put. They can see you have to work hard. Then you also have that experience. Every time you're on holiday, you're going to that company. I think that is a good way of doing.
So we are back to my year 2002 way of working.
Exactly.
How life works.
And that it worked, didn't it?
It did, but I think maybe that's why we've come from.
Yes, exactly.
It became quite intimate.
Yeah. So I want to comment a bit on this whole Gen Z. So realistically, in my world, I'm dealing with CEOs at a level where we're not seeing a lot of Gen Zs that are, that I'm working in and bringing into those roles. But that doesn't mean I don't interact with Gen Zs. But in my first comments to this, I think it's understanding Gen Zs and where they are now in the changing, I'd call it the employment revolution maybe as well. Because, now with, we've got influencers who make a lot more money than coming into these traditional structures. So what you talked about, in our generation, we were to get a job and follow this matrix and this is the way it works, but they don't need to enter. So it's really an employment revolution per se. It's changing things, but we see that in governance as well. And it's about stakeholder engagement, inclusiveness. And so Before, I think when you worked in the boardroom or if you're a CEO, you really weren't taking in as much from down up from your employees. The Gen Zs are forcing us to be stakeholder inclusive, and really the world is moving that way. Corporate governance is moving that as well, and we learned that in COVID. So I think the first thing is consciousness for companies that we now need, it's not a one-way communication down. We talked about communication. Gen Zs really want the communication up. The dealing with Gen Zs from what's coming out a lot in best practices are really engaging with them. So having someone at HR really taking the time, where you're growing, how does this fit into your larger framework? They're a lot more holistic in how they view things. It's not just about going to the workplace and coming out. That cult you were building, they kind of want, they want the cult, they want to feel appreciated, they want to be valued. So it's a very different worker that we're dealing with. And so first is understanding the difference, and is your organization ready for boards and organizations that have startups that are really having products that go to Gen Zs, really having them on your board. I mean, it's really important to get that feedback. So I think greater understanding of how best to incorporate Gen Zs. So my tips would be around really taking the time to understand how this is a changing worker in the workforce and in your organization. And the onboarding has to be a lot more involved. You can't just get the person in and let them sink or swim. I think it requires more hand-holding and more attention to Gen Zs than in our generation when you were onboarding.
Oh, fantastic. So interesting. Certain things that touched my mind there in terms of onboarding, I think very important, as you mentioned. I think a dialogue between top and down and up and down, top down and bottom up, those are very interesting conversations. And the issue of role models, which we need to become role models, or we need to be step up more. And Manish, because I want us to now wrap up from a point of view eventually, just your touch on Gen Zs, especially you're placing these Gen Zs in global universities. What's your experience even as you place them in these global universities, right? I'm not sure if you've finished the life cycle of any of your students that you've placed that have come back. I would like to know if they've come back, if you're placing them back into the job system in Kenya. How is that going?
So Gen Z is it's 20-something, right?
Yeah.
It's 20-something. I think I don't know why we have created this entire conversation on Gen Z, to be honest. I mean, if you look at the greatest companies built in the world, they've been built by Gen Zs. I mean, look at what was the age of Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, Elon Musk.
But it's not the age, it's not an age.
Yeah.
It's the season.
When they were born.
When
it's
they
the
were
year
born.
they're born.
It's not an age
It's
issue.
not the age.
It's not an
It's not
age
the
issue.
It's not the age.
Yes.
Okay.
Because a 25-year-old person in the year 2000 behave very differently
Yeah,
from one
it's
today.
their 20s now, but
Yeah,
there
up
are
to
different
20,
20s
up
than
to
we were
27,
20s or when
yes.
Steve
Okay, so
Jobs
you're saying the
was
20s today
Today.
are different from the 20s.
It has
in the
evolved
past.
because technology is available, information is available.
So they're a lot more efficient.
Yeah,
for
lateral
example.
thinking is available.
Yeah. What
Not
do you see a
efficient.
difference? I mean, maybe you don't see it.
No,
He doesn't see a difference.
I don't see a difference between the 20-something today and the 20-something before.
So you're telling me, you 25.
We had some entitled kind of brats at our 20s. We had some really smart, diligent, hardworking kind of risk takers in our 20s. And I seen like both sides of people in our 20s and the same 20s.
Interesting.
Like I don't see a difference. That's why it just
Incredible.
makes me uncomfortable like to have this conversation on Gen Zs because like we've been put in. Okay, think about the biggest revolution that has happened in this country recently. Who led that revolution? Was it not Gen Zs? Well, they were Gen Zs, right?
Mm-hmm. And
I mean, look at the courage these guys had. Were people like at our age doing anything about it? No. It was Gen
No,
Zs who
but
stepped
also,
on.
but also,
a lot of Gen Zs
but
stepped
also
on
in
the,
Matiba time, in that olden time, also we had the Gen Zs.
Of course, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Orengo was
That
a Gen Z, I
Gen
guess.
Zs like did something incredible. I mean, they allowed themselves to be, put themselves in a line of fire, and they left everything and they got. So look, I have a different opinion. I think I think it's just categorization like an entire generation of people into one single set of values is not fair. That's my view. I think people are individuals across generations who behave in certain ways based on who they are as individuals. So I generally do not. I try my best not to categorize people into kind of sets of mindsets especially when you're talking about an entire generation of people. You're not even talking about like a small set. You're saying this whole Gen Z is like this. Because I have seen, every positive and negative of a Gen Z that we talk about in my 20s also. I mean, I did some foolish things when I was 20 as well. I mean, I had a sense of entitlement at some point of my life for sure. When I became a very young CEO, I had a sense of entitlement. I wanted an office. I wanted certain comfort. So that's my view of it. I think 85% of, I think 90% of our organization is Gen Zs, from that perspective. Incredible bunch of people. Some people did not do a great job, and we had a conversation with them, and some were let go, and some were kind of like coached upwards. So I don't have like a strong opinion on, like, I have just positive things to say, generally speaking. And I typically as a leader would take more blame on myself if a so-called Gen Z working under me is not kind of performing. I think it's more of my responsibility. Did I bring in the wrong person? Did I bring the wrong person in the wrong job? Or did I not coach them enough? Or did I not onboard them well enough? Did I not set the expectations right? So I don't kind of look at things from that lens at all. This Gen Z generation and it's a generation of 1 billion plus people. How do we characterize them as one microcosm of attitudes and competence? I don't know. I can't do that.
Most leadership programs are built for stable systems, clear rules, predictable institutions, high trust.
What are high trust environments? It's a handshake, it's a table.
But that's not the terrain most leaders are operating in. Here, trust is fragile.
We cannot accept this brand because it doesn't have the word insurance.
Power moves informally, institutions are uneven, capital is asymmetrical. And growth, succession, or visibility doesn't always reduce risk, sometimes it increases it. In these environments, leadership failure rarely comes from lack of intelligence or effort. It comes from poor judgment under pressure. When the terrain is misread, even capable leaders make costly, irreversible decisions not because they are weak, but because the system they are operating from is incomplete. The African Founder Operation System, AFOS, was built for this reality. AFOS is not a course, it is an operating system for leadership under pressure. It is designed to help leaders think clearly, decide deliberately, and act with integrity.
The genesis of this conversation is around understanding what keeps founders breathing and moving and not giving up.
When the environment itself is unstable, most leadership programs are built for stable systems, clear rules, predictable institutions, high trust.
What are high trust environments? It's a handshake, it's a table.
But that's not the terrain most leaders are operating in. Here, trust is fragile.
We cannot accept this brand because it doesn't have the word insurance.
Power moves informally, institutions are uneven, capital is asymmetrical. And growth, succession, or visibility doesn't always reduce risk, sometimes it increases it. In these environments, leadership failure rarely comes from lack of intelligence or effort. It comes from poor judgment under pressure. When the terrain is misread, even capable leaders make costly, irreversible decisions not because they are weak, but because the system they are operating from is incomplete. The African Founder Operation System, AFOS, was built for this reality. AFOS is not a course, it is an operating system for leadership under pressure. It is designed to help leaders think clearly, decide deliberately, and act with integrity.
The genesis of this conversation is around understanding what keeps founders breathing and moving and not giving up.
When the environment itself is unstable,
I think my take on Gen Zs, for me, it's about inspired leadership that is extremely authentic. I think if you try and inspire and you're dishonest, then Gen Zs will hate you. If you try and be dishonest, okay? So you try and even be honest and you're not inspirational, they also don't want you. So you have to choose which part. You have to. I think there has to be a level of inspiration, okay? And even if you're inspiration, if you're not inspirational and you're honest, then be a doer. Make sure you say what you say you will do, you do. You see, I can be inspiring and honest, but maybe I'm not a doer. So I need to get somebody else to come and do. But you can also be a doer and honest, but not necessarily inspirational, which is okay. That's a combination that you need. So I think as CEO, if you're going to hire Gen Zs, you need to ask yourself, what am I? Am I an inspiring leader that is honest? Am I an inspiring leader that is dishonest? And they'll come and cause chaos in your place. Am I not necessarily inspiring, I'm okay, but I'm honest, but I make sure I execute what I say I'll do.
I think what's coming through, on that, is it sounds like, or it's
my opinion, that is.
Yeah. But it appears that in a culture, integrity is coming as the top piece.
It is.
But for Gen
new
Zs,
culture,
what you say is what you should do.
Exactly.
That is the bottom line. You say you will do, they will hold you to account. Us, we let things slide, But you say you will do, I will do this for you, or our company does this. 3 months, the line somebody's leaving because you're not, what you've said is not what you're doing. So I think Gen Zs, that part of integrity, they have it. But it is everything. I think the work ethic, and that is teachable. There are a few things that I agree with him. At 25, you didn't know. But if you're willing to learn, you can do it. But you have to be authentic. Inspiration, I don't think much inspires them apart from people who've made a lot of money. I see that is very inspirational, whether you're a politician or a movie star, Money is also a very big thing to Gen Zs, I think. Maybe I'm wrong, but...
But can I say, who's money not a big thing to? Like, I'm a millennial, right? Like, technically speaking? Yeah. Like, is money not a big thing to millennials? You guys talked about, being inspired, being authentic, and being a doer, right? Mm-hmm. Does a millennial... It's like if I was working and would I not want... I'm a millennial, so would I not want my boss to be authentic, inspirational, and a doer? Like, I would also want that. Maybe they're being more vocal about it. Maybe they're more vocal about it. And as you said, maybe we'll live with it, and they will not live with it, which is a great thing, right? Like, we want people in this world who are not willing to live with inauthenticity and people who are not doers and people who are not inspirational. So it's a great thing that they don't let it slide. So I think the standards that organizations have to hold to themselves have become higher because of the Gen Zs, right?
Yes.
Which is a fantastic thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but I think what the difference between the two generations, or whatever generations you say, is velocity of information.
Yeah, which is actually
the velocity of information now is at its highest. Velocity. Okay? No, it's not by velocity.
Yeah, I know.
The time it moves from you said to I had, it's moving at a rapid pace.
Yeah.
the velocity of the world, how we see the world, is also at its another level you can't even say.
Yeah.
When I was in a 20, the velocity of information is something could be said today, I know it in 6 months. So I have forgotten, I've healed.
Yeah.
So today you don't have time to heal.
Yeah.
Because the moment I insult you online, I'm not healing. I can insult you back. It's not those days I would send you a letter, it takes a month to come. Then by the time I respond to it, even I've cooled down. To me, the velocity of engagement is at its highest.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
That the velocity has come at, and then now, information now all of a sudden has become at the fingertips.
Yeah.
I can structure, I can write, I can research. You can send me a 50-page document. I decide, what is this? I don't want it. I can take the contract you're telling me. There's so much that's at our fingertips today, which was not there. And that's the only difference, to be honest, right?
Yeah.
Between the two setups of humans.
No, absolutely. I
So
agree with you.
then the conversation of how you looked at capital, how we flaunted wealth. In 20 years ago, even our parents, nobody wanted to say, you'd see a few guys with big Mercedes-Benz, but they would keep them to themselves. Today, your Mercedes-Benz there is on your Instagram, on your face like this, like I've just bought this, whatever. That's the difference.
Yeah,
Our aspiration
that's
of what we wanted.
You have to see why are they doing this. They are doing this because they're looking for validation, because they're not getting that validation. Number one, you have to also understand that in our times, 100% of my relationships were physical. Today, 85% are digital. Like any person that you ever talk to, like if you look at all the conversations you had in the last 1 week, I promise you 90% of all your conversations were digital. They were not. So they are socially isolated. That's the only world they live in. Because also, in our times, I started in a joint family. So we had like 16 kind of like people in one house. Today we have 4 in one house. People started moving out. They wanted independence. They wanted space. So they started moving out. So they isolated themselves. They isolated their kids. The biggest challenge today, I see with my kids is a sense of isolation. It's just not having enough social kind of currency around them. And of course, always then seeking validation. So hence they're doing the social media, because we brought them in this world where the only way they could make friends is on social media, and the only way they could talk to people. And you talked about role models, like what are we role modeling, If we are, Mike, you're different, I really appreciate you. You create like these physical spaces. So don't get me wrong there, but when they see, we are talking to our friends on WhatsApp, this is the mindset that, they are setting up. So I think like, I really like Gen Z. I think I have the best things to say about them. Also,
I love Gen Z.
Nobody said that Gen Z, but then we need to move forward. Don't move forward, because Gen Z is Gen Z. We have talked. You yourself has agreed that we're in a time when things from 16 in a house, 4 in a house.
Yeah.
That's how they
that's why it is.
Yeah. But we need to move on. I think because this is going to be the longest show, which is fine. Because it's really to do with humans, which is okay, right? It's not capital, it's not money in the bank. And I think we need to move towards your what you call your key takeaway, or what your key reflection was. It's a very important part of this conversation, because in all our podcasts, this is where people really even want to record this session. So we want to close in the next 20 minutes with very clear, crisp conversation of how you see this whole conversation, why it's gone. I think we've been across the world. We've talked about hiring, Gen Zs, founder problems, hiring. Tumekuwa pali mingi. We have been many places. So we need to wrap this up with that 20 minutes. So for me to help you close this is for you to start having personal reflection about how to close this. For me, the way I look at it, everything you said came to me through, I sort of remembered something by Tim Robbins. Tim Robbins talks about the 6 fundamental steps that give you belonging, that make you belong. Okay, Tim Robbins. And you can then create 6 of these into any, you can rank them based on how you view life. Okay? The first one is growth. How do you see growth? How important is it to you in your value chain? So you can rank how I rank mine and how you rank yours determines how I view life, okay? And how I want life to be. Second one is contribution. Growth, contribution. Third is certainty. How much do you want? Some people, they don't give a damn about growth. They'd rather be certain, I'm receiving this paycheck. Hiyo mambo ya growth mwache huko, mweke huko kwenyu. So the next one is contribution. Anything you do in life, do you see yourself contributing? Some people, so long as they're contributing within for themselves, the rest, I don't care. Is that correct?
Yeah.
The next one is what we call love and connection. The love and connection is about how I feel, my human connect to people, love and connection, right? And then the other one, I think, is significance. The massive significance. So anything you do, how significant is? You said, I think you just said something. You said, Mike, you're different. It's good you're doing this. See, the way you said it in a very interesting way can already explain to you how I rank my top 6.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking it's my responsibility to be in this show for the next generation of people. It is my responsibility. Because I don't think there's somebody somewhere who would never have access to me, but they'll have access to us through this platform. So I think just by doing this, my contribution to our society is significant, just by doing what we're doing. You get my point? I could have just sat home. I could have said, we don't need to be here. You decided to show up, okay? You decided to show up. Why? Because, and you'll see how it gives back, it's because your conversation you had today could change there are people somewhere who would never meet you, will never meet you. But finally, they've heard from you. So for me, my takeaway from this is that for you to build the next generation of talent, you need to figure out in those 6 dimensions where you are. If I don't care about growth, if I don't care about contribution, if contribution is my lowest, if for me the first thing is certainty, then even people who work for me, so long as I get my return, myself, as Michael, you don't have to grow. Why would I put you in a guest house? Why would I make sure that I keep empowering you? I don't own you. 5 years later or 6 months later, even 2 years, you leave my employment. And I pumped 2 million shillings on you. So long as you help me grow in that time, I'm fine. Does that make sense? That's my final takeaway. So it just gave me a validation it just may give me a little bit clarity of thought in terms of how to look at talent, even if I'm sitting with another board member, because a board member also with me, even advisory board member, is also talent. If I'm looking for you to come and work with me as an advisory board member, it is just a different, in quotes, executive talent I'm bringing in my company indirectly. So if I don't align with you, if the first thing you want as a board member, advisory board member, is certainty, past pesa iko happy, then surely. And me, I'm looking for growth. I'm looking at certainty. We're already far apart. So that's the kind of takeaway we want to sort of think through, such that when somebody thinks and says, okay, how was that? How did those guys impact me? It's also a personal reflection to say, what is it? It doesn't matter. It can be anything. You can even jump, start and dance and say, I started dancing after this show. It's okay also, right? Okay? So over to anybody who is ready to do this.
So key takeaways from this.
Yes, not takeaway, but really is your internal reflection.
Yeah.
Something that we don't know. It's not about it, but it's about just for you to bring out that.
Yeah, I can share.
Sure.
If you guys, okay. I can share some reflections. I think, I had a really long journey in my life, kind of like working with a lot of people. And I think I like to use this term that I learned in kind of McKinsey ways called strong opinions loosely held. So you kind of like you're clear where you want to go, but the way you can go there, you may be flexible to change. And I built some strong opinions, but I still retain flexibility to kind of learn more. Number one is that I think, stop seeing kind of people who work in your office as resources and see them more as kind of human beings. And human beings function the same way they function at home and they function at workplace. They're the same people. People generally want to be inspired. That's what we've seen. That works a lot. We've seen, we look for people who have an abundance mindset rather than a scarcity mindset. I think that's really been a big difference for us. Number 3 is that understand the context that they're coming from. So they could be coming from an organization that had a very different culture from the way you had a culture. So don't expect them to change overnight. Interview well, onboard them well, show them both the best sides of working with your place, because you want to inspire the best people to work with you, but also show them the the not so glorious parts of working with you as an organization and also as you as a CEO. Performance reviews, make them continuous and not annual. Reward people handsomely, pay them above market, and incentivize, really well incentivize people who are doing well for you. So as I said, in our organization, we either like give you a really big bonus and a very big jump or not. So yeah, so I think, and I think, you know, one of the things that the last thing I would say is that, you know, I tell people that, you know, we work like this, you know, you are, so we are all connected together to achieve this one mission, but we are like this, we are not like this. I'm not like here and you are here, because you are performing a role that I can't perform. And I'm performing a role that you can't perform. For this organization to be successful, you need to perform what you're doing, which I cannot do today. Because some of the technical stuff that my team does, I'm not even competent at that. And some of the stuff that I do, they can't do that. So we work together. You play a role, I play a role, we do this together. So I think like I like this circular kind of org structures rather than hierarchical, you know, like we don't have like an organogram in our office.
But for you, what's your takeaway? Me, I understand that from a business point of view, I get it. I think I want to know you as Manish. I want to leave here knowing from this conversation, I understand technically what you need to do as a manager or whatever. I want to know you. What's your takeaway? Not technical.
My takeaway, which is not.
Don't have to answer. We can wait for you. We can get Catherine to do. We'll come back to you. Me, I don't want to. The other stuff of business, I get it.
A little bit more. Like, what do you mean?
You see, at the end of the day, we started by saying it's a founder conversation.
Yeah.
It's not an employee conversation.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, what I mentioned to you, like the founder's operating system, you've got those 5 variables.
Yeah.
Your emotional state, your spiritual state, right? Maybe my argument could be, I need to be more spiritually engaged. Okay? With the people I work with.
Got it.
Understand? I just need to feel that I have a soul. Is that correct?
Got it.
I have. But some people could say, for the first time, I figure out maybe it's time I don't become so transactional. I become feeling. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Right? For you, your takeaway. But Catherine, we'll come back to you. Because if you're not done, we'll do it until we get to you, until you crack it.
Okay. My biggest takeaway is that I'm in the right space, number one. And everything revolves around human beings. Sometimes systems can take over. Sometimes everything is human. Everything is human, even the machine, whatever they can do. So in the space that I am in, my takeaway is maybe I have to listen more to the customer, the person who wants to employ, and to the employee, and bridge that gap in a better way. Because I've understood a few things that were missing in the way we do things. Because we have to look at the holistic company and which human is going to fit, both the founder and the employee. He's saying he didn't like the term human resource, but I think humans are the greatest resource we have. So I think they should just be treated as a great resource. That's my takeaway.
Great. I think that's interesting because Farah talked about founders. Sometimes she talked about that we don't take enough time to understand the founder's business. And I think you've taken her advice. Maybe your biggest take is
exactly.
She gave you the biggest she gave you the biggest gift is to say maybe for the first time I'll take a back step and say before I consult, let me first understand this founder and the business. Because maybe I'll be able to create best value. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Farah?
Oh, so many takeaways. So this being your legacy, I think for me to think about what is my legacy and what do I leave behind. And, I'm working on my own brand, which is a holistic brand of mind, body, soul. And while in my fitness brand, of course, it's all about consciousness and how you do things in a conscious way. But I think leadership and entrepreneurship is also about conscious leadership. So I always like to see everything translate. And a lot of the things I do as an athlete, I relay back into workspace and the same thing. So I think it's also a good exercise, again, here in cross-cultural dynamics and different people from different environments, same problems, same issues, but I think being conscious about how you you are moving through in a place that is, driving your income. You spend a lot of time there, and being more conscious and intentful in how you're doing it. So, yeah, I mean, I sit I dabble both. I'm an entrepreneur, but work with companies. So I'm not coming from the strictly entrepreneurial. And of course, today's conversation, I went back on my whole journey getting here, and it did help me, I guess, reinstate the values I believed that you need working in an entrepreneurial venture are still the same, and so it was good to revisit that. The takeaway from this is, I think build what works for you. I think you've done a lot of things very creatively, and that's what entrepreneurship is. And I try to do that within my business in what is kind of a tough economy around search, because search is about educating people. Why? And even we talk about it. Why would you need someone like myself to come to you and work with you? But it's also reaching out when you need help. I think entrepreneurs don't do enough of that. One of the things that I know we didn't talk a lot about in talent, which as a parting thing I would like to leave behind is really wellness and mental health around entrepreneurs. And I think it's going to come up in another show. But that's another thing I look at. Today's leaders, and whether they're Gen Zs or whatever they are, the environment is a lot tougher as an entrepreneur. The environmental dynamics are different. Gone are the days when you can just sit in your office. You need to be agile. So not only mentally, but physically. And that's something that didn't come across today. And I think we need a lot more conversation around that, around successful leaders, especially entrepreneurs. There's such a drain on your body, your mind, your emotion, your spirit when you're working in an organization like this. And so I think that's something that I still feel is something we need to talk a lot more about as a takeaway as well.
Fantastic. I think what is important is you mentioned going back into your life and looking and sort of doing the journey. Mm-hmm. That's what, when I said we were going to do this, at the end of 2 hours, you're going to feel like therapy.
How did I get here? And do I define myself as an entrepreneur? What am I? Where am I? Who am I? And,
exactly. And you're quiet. You realize, despite all of us talking, there's a lot of going in your mind, right? And something you mentioned about mental wellness, it's one of the topics we have coming up.
Yes.
Because both in terms of entrepreneurs thinking they're immortal, thinking like nothing will ever happen to me.
Succession planning.
Like, what will happen? Number two is all looking at the issue of mental health. We go through a lot of turbulence. One of the interesting sessions we have the next show is about how to rebuild when everything is lost. And I know when we're having this conversation with those founders, they've gone through a lot. And I know this issue of mental is going to come up, because if you, at that point, if you can't build with a mental state, right, that is right, and management, there's going to be a problem. So that's something we're going to be talking to, because I think it's very important.
Not only the leaders, but the talent you're hiring. You need to have those support systems. And when looking at your talent that you're hiring, again, look at people that have that experience, that grit, that ability to be resilient. So those are the kind of people that we're looking for in today's world now.
But even as we go to Manish before you close, one of the questions you've mentioned about looking for people who are resilient and grit. One of the things that I found that works is, I don't know, we talked about it earlier. We used to do something called psychology. We used to have a psychologist in-house, and they would sort of do a psychological analysis of people before we hire them. And we found that the inherent soft issues are so misaligned to your culture that even if they got there, it's realigning them would be so difficult.
Yeah.
How they view things, trauma, or what happens. You'd have to sort of remodel your company for them. And yet you can't do that. For every employee, you can't be modeling your company. Wewe sasa umekuja Catherine, tuchape Panel B TV. Manish has come, let's realign the company. If the company has got these rails, how do you make sure the guys who jump into the bandwagon onto that rail are the right people, not trying to re-engineer the rail? Because sometimes I think somebody is so good, you want to get that talent in so bad, you try and re-engineer the rail for them.
Yeah, it's called falling in love with the candidate. It happens all the time.
Exactly. So that's something that we should not align on. Manish, as we wrap up.
My key takeaway from these sessions: I think what was interesting was just hearing perspective from the outside. Sometimes you get too caught up in your own thoughts and you get too fixated and in love with your own thoughts. I think just hearing kind of external perspectives on the same topics was very interesting for me. I think I didn't know anything about your journey. I think I know you from Ponea days onwards. But I think some of the things that you did, which is kind of hiding young talent from the campus, building them, creating that kind of fraternity around them with housing, etc., is something I deeply admire, because I'm a huge believer and champion of kind of young talent. And we also have hired, fresh from campus, and I've seen great value with that. But I think like your journey itself was like, because I've seen you when you kind of already kind of peaked on your success, or not, let me not say peaked on your success, you kind of on the top, like one of the top areas of your success, sorry.
I think my success
at the summit of your success. But I think like I've not seen the journey, that I didn't know anything about Rwanda and what you did Rwanda and everything. So that for me is like, I generally feel very inspired by, stories like these. And I think a lot of my reading has been readings on autobiographies and biographies. So I'm sure your story will make for a fascinating autobiography as well as someday. But yeah, I think like for me, it's just like generally different perspectives, because I do feel that I can be very guilty of being very fixated and absorbed in my own thoughts. And given that it has worked for you in the past, you feel like it's always going to work for you. So just hearing perspectives from Catherine and Farah has been kind of illuminating.
I'm happy. Thank you for that. I think finally, I think what you've said is sometimes you can fall in love with what you think you know, which is great. Which part of it is just being vulnerable to know. Sometimes you don't know. You know, but sometimes you think you know, but you realize you don't know as
someone
you know.
said something very interesting. He said, sometimes you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. That also is something that is great. But I guess part of our journey as we give stories through others, right? I wouldn't sit in a TV and give this story. I cannot give this story in context of what I said today, context to this conversation. Is that correct? But also what we want is to see more case studies in our schools. The way you're driving your talent in your organization is something you need to go and put in a case study.
Yes.
I think leaving it there by itself, there's also a case law school. Many of those business schools have got case law. Start documenting it. You don't have to be an Apple to document, right? Yeah. Start having these conversations, because some of these business schools you're going to, I don't want to talk about Coke and who did what. Those are things that don't even make sense to me anymore. Like, okay, whatever, right? Let's start documenting, because the more we document our case studies there, and you don't have to have raised $50 million, $100 million so that people can come and do a case study. I think we need to challenge the status quo and say, even we're willing to create our own case law organization where we write our case laws. We say, okay, here's our case law, which university is willing to adopt it. Because do we have to wait for a university to do a case law? Maybe it's worth to build a case law, a founder's case law, and say, we just need a rubber stamp, whichever university. If the guy comes from New Mexico,
is there something else coming from this group next? Is this a mandate?
Yes, we are hoping we can do that, because my hope is that we don't have to wait for those guys, academicians, to come and tell us we need to do our case studies. Let's do our case studies. And anybody in the world wants to come and rubber stamp it.
Actually, this really interesting thing that you said, which I did not reflect on, which is, what you're truly actually doing is you're building the operating system for founders.
That's what I'm doing, yes.
So that I think, like I saw what you're doing, but like the moment you kind of define it as like an operating system for founders, I think it makes so much sense, because once you build the operating system, you can transport it anywhere in the world. And I didn't kind of like connect the dots in the way that you probably have already done in your head. Like just to be part of creating that operating system in Africa, because none exists today. Every founder is learning, from scratch. There is no kind of case studies, as you said. All the case studies and books I've read is all of kind of like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. So well done, Mike. I mean, this operating system.
And 100%, I think you got it and you connected the dots. We believe that building our Africa founder operating system is our responsibility. And if our legacy says that together we build it, because we cannot build individually. It's your story, Then we put it together, and that becomes, oh my God, this is how it works. And if you leave the next generation of Africans understanding how to build, so they don't have to go through the whole Whole journey again, the same rail again. You know somewhere you're going to derail, and you clearly know you're going to derail. Why do you have to wait for me to derail? Why?
And it's very interesting for you to upload all of the episodes onto ChatGPT and say, create a founder operating system based on all of the stories. It'll be so interesting to see what comes out of it.
What you've said also, the journeys are different. So somebody could get from one founder or from one story something they also never thought about. So that bringing together those case studies can help different people in different parts of their journey.
Agreed.
Yeah, so I think it's a great idea. I think what you're doing is a great thing because even the previous episodes, I always glean something from what has been said by somebody. And that helps, remove a few rough edges just by listening to the podcast.
And Catherine, interesting also to tell you something as we wrap up. One of the things one of the areas you can maybe look at, and I think one of the things founders are trying to do is, I listen to Manish. Fine, he's building his business. Farah is building her business. You're building your business. So he has got some knowledge but it's all around his business. It's all around his business. And for me, the way I look at it is, and what I'm going to try and encourage founders, is within that community, which is your business, the knowledge you have, if you keep it there, you don't sharpen it. Because it becomes you're drinking your own Kool-Aid for some time. You're not even sure, you're just going. So my hope is that one day, we can have a platform, which we hope to have soon, where you, Manish, I'm going to put your capabilities in our platform. Farah is going to be on our platform. Catherine is going to be our platform. Catherine goes to pitch, in Ghana. And she realizes she needs you to co-pitch with her. Because sometimes that means that she's about to pitch for a big project. And you need to get into Ghana. You've never been to Ghana, and it's an opportunity. So why don't you guys team up? You have the skills to help her pitch. Because maybe the CEO she needs to pitch to will listen to you from that point of view before she gets in to do her job. It allows you into that market. So you have to learn to co-innovate together to create value. You get my point?
Interesting.
Trust me, if you take me to a meeting with you, to first do your first pitch and your first architecture meeting, you're most likely going to build double and create big fast value immediately.
Yep.
Because you're leveraging me, my entrepreneurial capability. So the other founder is going to listen to me and say, hey, I think Mike knows, or Mike has been through it. So let me listen to them. So our level of innovation around HR will be higher because we think innovation from that point of view. You get my point? Like, for instance, one of the things I've been thinking about is, why don't we do exchange programs? Before Bob Collymore passed on, I told him, why don't we, since you keep poaching my staff, every time I do a project, you have poached my people. This has to stop. I told him, why don't we do this? We are very entrepreneurial as a business, You guys have reached a point where he's always complaining about, they had reached a tipping point where the innovation was not happening. It was really driven by external people who come with ideas. So I told him, why don't you just bring some of your key staff members to stay in my company for 90 days? You take mine, let them come to your company for 90 days. The guy will tell you the truth, boss, this Safaricom we can do. And they will come and tell me, you, my friend, what's this business you're running here? Is that correct? So maybe it's learning to cross-pollinate and say, why can't you get people from one company to come and work for you? So that's my closing shot. Because we need to be creative as founders. To be able to empower ourselves, we can only be creative to work together. So the question is, why can't you create an exchange program between companies? What IP do you have that is there, that you're not building some rocket science something? That IP is already with your senior cohort, right? You said you have senior management and then doers. So bring some doers into that ecosystem. Because they may cross-pollinate your thought process differently. And why? For 3 months, you're not even paid. And maybe you need those guys who just bring that level of knowledge and level of, even say this culture is great or this culture is bollocks. Anyway, that could be our closing comment today. And as we say, we need to innovate around talent. I think the solutions we have traditionally may work or may have worked for us, but we've also agreed and talked about Gen Zs in different aspects of it, which is very interesting. I think we've taken personal reflection, and this is going to be, I think, the longest show ever. But I guess, as one of our colleagues has said, it's a human resources. We need to look at it human, but there are resources that we need to build. I wish you well, and thanks a lot, everybody, for coming. And I'm sure we're going to have interesting feedback from this show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Most leadership programs are built for stable systems, clear rules, predictable institutions, high trust.
What are high trust environments? It's a handshake, it's a table.
But that's not the terrain most leaders are operating in. Here, trust is fragile.
We cannot accept this brand because it doesn't have the word insurance.
Power moves informally, institutions are uneven, capital is asymmetrical. And growth, succession, or visibility doesn't always reduce risk, sometimes it increases it. In these environments, leadership failure rarely comes from lack of intelligence or effort. It comes from poor judgment under pressure. When the terrain is misread, even capable leaders make costly, irreversible decisions not because they are weak, but because the system they are operating from is incomplete. The African Founder Operation System, AFOS, was built for this reality. AFOS is not a course, it is an operating system for leadership under pressure. It is designed to help leaders think clearly, decide deliberately, and act with integrity.
The genesis of this conversation is around understanding what keeps founders breathing and moving and not giving up.
When the environment itself is unstable,